You obviously are a listing machine.
25% of our agents that are earning six-figure incomes.
You could become out of sight, out of mind real quickly.
For us, a huge part of our business is past client.
God, man, I thank you for it.
So one of the reasons why I'm attracted to Matt Patty is his due diligence. Matt Patty, the listing machine. So we talked about how he engages in the listing process, what he does to get listings, and what he does to overcome those objections. He actually brought his right-hand man, or in this case, his right-hand woman, Rachel McNally. We talked about what Rachel's role is in the brokerage and how she works with the Matt Patty team. I really appreciate the way Matt goes about his business, and it's a good fit for Balkun Title. So how we doing, everybody? Today I'm here at Shoreline Properties, Century 21. I'm with Matt Patty and Rachel McNally of the Matt Patty team. Kind of excited about this one because we do a lot of interesting topics, and we also do a lot of interesting business with Matt and Rachel and the team. So today I want to introduce, we have Matt Patty here to my, if you're looking at it, to my left, Rachel's to my right, or left, right, right, left. I'm half Polish, so you know how that goes. So we've been working together now, it feels like forever. We've known each other probably, God, it feels like 10 years in the business or so. And then we really started progressing with our relationship over, I'd say, the last 2 or 3 years. And a lot of commonality, right? I mean, obviously, you guys are out there selling property. You know, I'm doing closings. And then it was kind of me that approached you, actually. I mean, it's weird to have people send business that just send business in this day and age and in this market where just service is really important. And I think that's, we'll start with some of those topics. So Matt, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, about how long you've been doing real estate, and you know, a little bit of information about, you can tell about the brokerage.
Matt Patty, Century 21, Shoreline Properties. I think we're going into 14th year since I began. I started in the down market 2009. So we started the Matt Patty team about 2013, I think. That was when we just branded over from an individual agent to a team concept. Rachel McNally, who's with us here, joined the team, I think, like 2017?
It's been 6 years, so yeah, 2017. I think.
2017. And as Dan mentioned, we were always an individual team in another firm that was very successful at selling houses, and we loved it, and we learned a lot in our former company. But the opportunity to open Century 21 Shoreline Properties with Kyle Seabeth was something that we saw as an opportunity to really grow. And then, you know, obviously when you're doing this business, some people do it and they are individual agent, they're very content with that. What I think we were looking to do, or I was looking to do in terms of planning out the future, was how to grow a bigger business. So we felt like we had the ability to support other agents. We're currently sitting on about 31 agents for our agent count. We have about 90% of our agents that are producing transaction volume at this point. So the average is about 50% for the state. So those are some of the things we're working on. And over the past 3 years, it's been great because Balkun Title has been a partner along with Semper Home Loans in really pushing forward the marketing, the professionalism, the consistency of what we look for with our clients when we refer a transaction out. And so by kind of building that triangle, kind of that pillar of trust, where we know that not every transaction is going to close at your office, right? Because sometimes somebody's cousin does it and they won't do this or that or the other thing, and that's fine. And not every loan is going to go to our lender partner either. But what we do know is that when we make that referral, we can create a very uniform service that we can then offer to all of our agents, and then they can buy that byproduct, offer that to their clients.
Consistency, right? I mean, consistency is the number one key, I think, in any real estate transaction.
Yeah, and I had a buyer reach out to me yesterday, and she was looking for an agent to help her. It was a referral from a past client. And one of the things she asked was, do I need an attorney for closing? Do I need a title company? I said, you do? She said, well, I don't have one. I said, well, that's okay, because she's also working with Semper Home Loans. I said, we do. We have a trusted partner. Yeah. And I did tell her that when you have that triangle, the transaction just goes so smoothly. If you don't, and it's somebody's cousin or, you know, someone who doesn't really do real estate or doesn't really do a lot of loans, or even from your point, an agent who doesn't do a lot of deals, it's a lot more difficult if you don't have that cohesiveness to really help the client to get to closing smoothly.
I guess for helping agents grow, what we look at is how can they scale, right? So you can, every transaction, you can take 80 hours to close one deal, you know?
Yeah.
And you're gonna, and
Yeah, some days, right?
and you're gonna get paid the same as if you do it in 15 hours, you know? So when an agent comes to us and they're really struggling and they're like, okay, you know, I'm working my ass off, I'm not really getting where I need to be with this, you know, you seem like one of the number one things that people will, I guess if there's one of the number one things, that would be hard to be, because that would mean there were multiple number ones. But
Sure.
but so one of the biggest things that agents will come to me with as a problem they want to help solve in their career is how to get that consistency where they're like, okay, I want to work smarter, not harder. So people have come to me and said after transactions, I want to meet with you, because during the transaction, we didn't have to meet that much. We didn't have to talk that much.
Right.
We didn't have to hold hands with each other. There was one little bump. It got solved quickly.
Sure.
I want to know how that happened, like how you did that.
We call that doing your job,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's.
So like
Yeah, you did your job, right?
Right.
You guys are doing your job,
But-
and that's important, you know?
But but I think that one piece of that is like we know what to expect when we hand it off.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, we send it over to Dan's office. We know who the point of contact is going to be. I know it's usually Greg or Andrew,
Yeah, absolutely.
but a lot of times we see Greg on the closings,
Sure.
and we get a pattern for that. And then I know what you're going to do, which is run the whole business the way that you run it. So we also know that the clients, a lot of times, you know, there's little things like how they get treated as people that really does matter to us, because we don't like it when they go into a certain attorney's office and there's like a lot of legalese and it's like show up at this time, and then we're like, hey, what time is your closing? And like, oh wait, we don't know. And then somebody's just like the next day they're like, show up at this time, we'll see you there. You know, and that,
I've seen some of your video
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
about this. The rant is real, you know.
So it
No,
happens
because as professionals, like, not to cut you off, but
No,
as
you're good.
professionals, like, you need to, people are scheduling time out of work, or they don't have vacation time, or they only can come at a certain time. And flexibility in this business is one thing that you don't get paid for, but it's a must.
Well, also, by that point in the transaction, we're almost done, and there's so much emotion involved, and they're so
Yeah.
stressed. So for them to say, okay, closing tomorrow, I know nothing. I haven't
Yeah.
heard from the attorney's office.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at anything. I don't know where I'm going.
Right.
That just adds such a layer of stress to the transaction. Even, the most calm clients at that
Yeah.
point are
get anxious.
stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the communication is key.
I think the other cool thing is when clients go to your office, I really do feel like they get a really nice experience. You know, they walk in, feel homey. Everybody's, the realtor partner everybody knows who that is. A lot of times there'll be a situation where the realtor can't attend the final closing. The way these banks, have one thing they have to get, hurdle comes up at the last minute, have to clear it. It's supposed to be at 1:00. It gets changed to 3:30.
Right.
Guess what? Your kid's in soccer practice and you're
Yeah,
the coach at 3:30.
sometimes it's a sliding scale.
So what we
Some offices still work on COVID.
Right.
That's like
That's just another mess. But the truth is, as a realtor, you really do want to feel comfortable that whether you can be there or whether you're not there, that if there's something that comes up, it's not just like sign here. This is form 51 3.c statute 12. You should know that. So what are you talking about?
Right.
Somebody's going to get real, and so this is not the reason to use your company necessarily, because there's so many exemplary reasons to refer Balkun title, but there is in some cases a low bar to get past with certain title and closing situations where the service level just isn't there. So everybody needs to be wary of that when they do kind of refer their cousin or whoever is not an actual full-time title attorney.
So Matt, we heard that you've been in the business since 2009,
Yep.
and you started and have done well. So Rachel, tell us, tell your fans out in real estate land. Like, so when did you get involved in real estate? What made you get involved, and what do you love about real estate?
Okay, so I started in 2017, and I have 3 kids, and my twins at the time were getting ready to go into kindergarten. So I was looking for something flexible, something that would work for my schedule. And my husband suggested, he's like, why don't you look into real estate? And
Smart man, I guess.
yeah, well, we actually had met somebody camping and Cape Cod, and he was a realtor, and he was working from his campsite, and Mike thought that was great.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I know a lot of people in the community.
Sure.
He's like, we can't go anywhere without bumping into someone you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same for you.
It's usually the guy's role that everybody knows everybody else, so the reverse roles.
Yeah.
right?
Rachel knows everybody. Like,
So
yeah.
I'm involved in a lot of different
things, which is
things.
awesome. Community.
So yeah, and so he's like, why don't you do it? So I actually reached out to Matt when I was thinking, because Matt and I knew each other because we were on the Women and Infants NICU Family Advisory Council together, because all three of my kids were born prematurely. Matt's daughter was born prematurely. So we were on a committee together for former parents to help current parents.
Nice common bond.
Yeah. So I reached out to him and I said, I'm thinking of going to real estate. What do you think? And so we met and we sat down and he scribbled a bunch of stuff on paper of how much money I could make and how many transactions I was going to do, and his normal meeting style, I guess.
Yeah.
So when we left, I was like, this is good, and I said, okay, this was a good meeting. Thank you for the information.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you know what? Why don't you come work with this company? Why don't you come work with me? And so I joined his team. And I've been on the team ever since. And for me, the team works. I know some people prefer to be an individual agent, but over the past 6 years, we've really developed. We work really well together, as well as with our administrative
I feel like
staff.
you kind of become his right-hand man too, or woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't realize this. The team, as far as producing agents for wherever we get for volume, is just Rachel and myself.
Yeah.
It's been that way a while. Bootsy is ops director, and he works for the overall company as well.
Sure.
And Catherine's administrative.
Absolutely.
And then we have some vendors.
They're part of the team too,
yeah, they're part of the team too. But as far as producing agents, it's really just Rachel and myself.
Have you found it easier to stay in that little lane? Or
Yeah.
have you tried to expand even further out, but people didn't get it as well? Or
For me, it works really well because I like being a leader in the brokerage and being able to mentor other agents on how to kind of what to do
Yep.
and to create resources and an outlet for them to be successful, and then to build on their own names and to do it their way. And I think one of the things that I give a lot of credit to some other people who've built much more like kind of military structured, large team, real estate teams,
Sure.
is that they're more like that drill sergeant. They're like, 8 a.m. we do this, like we do our morning huddle. We all get together and we say what we're gonna do. Then we all bash out the phones for 1 hour,
Sure.
and somebody's kind of marching around up and down. And it's a lot of online leads and internet leads and stuff like that. And you're really just ground and pound that, and then you're moving people up an organization.
So just a completely different style.
Yeah.
than what you love to do.
So for me, I realized I was not as good at running a structure
It's tough
like
to juggle
that.
that too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one, you want to grow a team, but the more people you put on the team, the harder I would imagine it would be to grow a brokerage.
Also, my personality is like libertad, right? So like I'm a libertarian. So it's kind of like I have struggled to say to somebody, hey, let's meet at 10 o'clock. They don't show up at 10 o'clock. I got a lot of shit to do. You know what I mean? So like I go straight through it. So running the brokerage, we have a lot of really great agents that like to be on a model of that flexibility, and we learn from each other.
Yeah.
But at the same time, their business structure, in the most part, is set up so they do it their way, I'm
Because everybody's different, right? Everybody likes,
And so
You give them the baseline, you give them the foundation. In a market where we see that we now have 9,000 agents, right? I mean,
Right.
obviously there's a lot of movement going on. There's people looking for new brokerages, there's people transferring in different licenses, and I'm seeing people drop out of the business. Tell me why like the Matt Patty team, and even more so like Century 21 Shoreline Properties, is a great place for an agent to come and work.
So 9,000 agents, 774 listings, I think.
Yeah.
That's today's number.
Yeah.
That's a great, 774, huh?
So that's the first challenge.
Yeah.
But the second challenge. So first of all, this is a very central, open, inclusive, diverse, productivity-based company where 90% of the agents that are on our roster roughly are producing transactional volume, compared to about 50% for a national or local average. So we're almost double.
Yep.
It's a company where even though we sit in the center of the state in Warwick, we cover the entire state. we cover agent. We have 25% of our agents that are earning six-figure incomes. So those are some of the statistics that are in excess of what the national averages would be. The reason why is because we have an environment where we try to hit all the values that we think an agent really wants. We think that an agent wants great education when they're new. We think they want technology and training. So we think that they want education and technology. We think they want, I'm sorry, I messed up.
That's okay.
Yeah. So,
So education, technology.
So do my five. It's education, technology, culture, compensation, and momentum. Those are my five. Okay. I'll start all right. So we feel like as a brokerage, we can offer all the things that agents want on different skill levels. So we feel like new agents want training and they want great technology. We think all agents want technology, so we offer that, and we offer.
We're in a technology age, right?
Absolutely. If you're a company, if you're a real estate company, real estate companies, I feel like they're always trying to say we can lead in tech. I'm not sure if we can lead in tech, but we can at least follow effectively. Right. You know what I mean? So there's going to be technology that agents are going to need with CRMs and things that are going to be highly effective. I think that established agents want culture, and they want to know that they can be compensated well, and that they're going to, if they run their own business and they develop their own identity in business, they're going to have a broker who supports them, who provides them with a culture they can believe in, that will support them as an individual and will compensate them well.
So Matt, one of the things that I know about your brokerage is you always go off of your 5 principles, or the 5 items that you always talk about when probably either prospecting or you stick to that plan on a daily basis.
5 things we think an agent wants in this market are education, technology, culture, compensation, being fair and effective for the plan they're in with multiple options within the company on that. And the 5th one's momentum. Momentum to us is the ability to log on, sign on to a brokerage that's building bigger and bigger and bigger every day. That's part of the largest organization, largest and fastest growing organization Century 21 has, I think, in the entire country for growth metrics. And that has a local office central to this every part of the state where we situate, that allows you to get to South County and market effectively there, and allows you to get to Kent County where we're located and market effectively, and allows you to market very effectively in Providence, Bristol, and Newport counties as well, because we really are at a linchpin near the highway, able to get to the bridges even. So with reality, if you're an agent who wants to work a diverse market, wants to learn how to work with real estate investors, wants to learn how to work with buyers and sellers at multiple price points from low to high, because we do it all here, then this is a great fit for you. And that's the reason why we're growing. It's the reason why we rarely ever lose agents. Really, we don't. And it's the reason why most of our people are producing.
So Rachel, one of the great things and one of the most important aspects, I think, of the brokerage is the training and the partnerships. Because unlike most brokerages, they do have partners, but the involvement seems to be very little. Either it's like, hey, here's some money for marketing, don't worry about showing up. And that is kind of like I feel like the wrong way of going about it. So the one thing that always happens here, or is a very consistent part of what's going on here, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is the training, the lunch and learns, and the overall communication between partners and agents here.
Yes, so we do a lot of trainings. And the thing about our trainings is that they're not just geared for new agents. They're not just geared for veteran agents. We have speakers come in. We do lunch and learns where we have an outside vendor or partner come in and talk. We do after hours events. And one of the reasons that we do that is so that, we is not me, but
that's
it's
okay.
Matt. So one of the ways that we help agents to grow, Matt was talking about his 5 things, and momentum is one of them, education, training is one of them. And we're helping, what I feel is that Century 21 Shoreline Properties is helping me grow as a well-rounded agent. So looking at every aspect of my business. And even the training sometimes that are not necessarily business related, but how to better ourselves. Have financial planners come in, had things like that. And it's important, I think, to have them come in, to have outside people come in, and to have our vendors so involved. Like you come in, you do the lunch and learns, you're a presence, you're someone that people can talk to. It's not, Dan is you can't talk to Dan. He
Right.
is the untouchable. You have to talk to his minions, you
Right,
know?
right.
Having those relationships is important, and I think it gives agents a chance to really grow and feel more confident because they know that someone's going to have their back. So if they're involved in a transaction and something's going wrong, in this brokerage, number one, they know that they can always go to Matt. They can go to any other agent. Everyone's willing to help each other here. But if they're working with one of our partners, they can, send you a text. They can send Cindy a text and say, "Oh my God, this is blowing up in my face.
Right.
What do I do? How are you going to help me?"
I get a lot of those calls, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's okay though, because I'd rather be the educator and teach in the moment than have something go wrong and then have to backtrack in.
Right.
So yeah, all great points. Thank you very much. Inquiring minds want to know, Matt, right? So you obviously are a listing machine. Between you and the team, you guys list a lot of properties. I think it's an unbelievable accomplishment because in this day and age, and again, you can have great listing presentations and you can have great information and do market analysis, but I'm always about systems, right, and beliefs.
Right.
So what is your belief or system every day? What makes you get up to you don't just get an appointment, right? You have to go through what? How many calls do you have to make? How many emails do you have to do? How many so give the crowd, the inquiring minds that want to know, how does that work on a daily basis for you?
So besides having a lot of appointments, right, you have to set a lot of appointments, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll dig into that. So the main thing is if you break down a 52-week year into individual weeks, you know how many appointments you are really going to want to go on each week in order to have an opportunity to get a listing, right?
Yep.
So you have to work backwards, basically.
Sure.
So if you want to go on 150 listing appointments in a year in order to take 75 listings or 100 listings, which if you're meeting with people who are not already your buddies, when agents say, I get 95% of my listings, it tells you one of two things. Either they don't know how to do math very well, or they only go on listings for their referrals.
So there's not a 95% conversion rate out
Absolutely
there?
not.
Okay, just checking.
Now, you have to think, when you're going on competitive listings, you're going against somebody who doesn't have a friend in the business who would rather measure exacting standards against other exacting standards to determine who they think is best or who they think is the most warm-hearted and gracious or who they think is the most tactical or who they think is the most aggressive or whatever virtue they think shines the most for a real estate agent.
Sure.
So you want to build in kind of all those values if you can do it. You want to be kind-hearted but aggressive, right? So ultimately, if somebody's good to you, you want to be good to them.
Right.
If somebody's tough on you, you got to be willing to be tough and stand up to them.
Right.
People are looking for you to represent them in transactions. So when you meet and give that listing presentation, that should be something that you work on and you think about and you practice over time. And you practice a few different ways. You practice by actually practicing, getting with a trainer and working on the things you're going to say and looking at the materials you're going to present. You practice by going on actual appointments and stubbing your toes sometimes and learning. And then you practice by continuing to develop the listing materials and study the market so that what you show them isn't something from 5 years ago when you sit down with them today, right?
So overcoming objections is a big thing in a listing, I would imagine, right?
Yep.
So going in, and even though you have all of that information, so dispel maybe, Rachel, I don't know if you want to jump in on this and maybe take it away from Matt and see how the teacher has taught the student. But you walk in and your market analysis says that the house is worth $400,000 and the seller wants you to list it for $550. Go.
So I just had that happen recently. And so when we do a market analysis, we look at comps, we look at recent comps. The market is obviously shifting a little bit. So it's really important to keep those comps current. So when you go to a seller and the seller says, well, you know what, my neighbor's house sold 6 months ago for $500,000 and my house is so much better, so I want to list it for $550. When there's not a comp in the world to justify that.
Right.
So what I always tell them, and this is what I did, with that appointment, is, you know what, you're the boss. If you want to list it for $550, we list it for $550. But you need to be prepared that it might not sell. There's a very strong chance that we're not going to sell at that price.
Key question, what are you going to do if the house doesn't sell?
Exactly.
What would your plan be?
Right.
Yeah.
Because when they...
Are you playing with me? Are you just want to see if it, are we test driving the
Well,
car?
not even that, but what if it doesn't, if your goal is to sell this house, because you're right, some people just want to kind of test
Yeah,
drive.
yeah.
But if someone's goal is to sell the house,
Right.
my job is always tell them to sell it for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah.
But we need to be realistic. And if we shoot high, that's fine. But you need to know that we might not get showings.
Yeah.
We might not get any offers. And you need to be prepared to reduce the price. And
Matt just brought up a really good point, because like, what is the goal? What's the plan, right? I can list a house, but like, what's their want? Like, what's their needs, right? Do they need to move? Are they relocating for work? Are they just testing the market?
Right.
Like, are they, once they list and get on the house, are we looking for new houses? Like,
I'm one of the few agents who might say this, is that sometimes, right, like I will admit that my crystal ball is broken, right? So, I mean, within reason, you can look at a house where the example being, you think it's worth 400, they want 550. That's probably time to end the date, you know? But they think you think it's worth 400, they want 425. A lot of the time I say to myself, you know what, why? And I'll ask them, why do you want 425? Why do you think it's worth 425? I'll show them a house on the report, because sometimes you go through the report when you're going through like a CMA, comparative market analysis, with a client, and you say, there's that house, and they say, I know that house. That house was a POS, and here's why.
Right.
It doesn't always mean it's not. Sometimes it's BS, but sometimes they're right. Sometimes they go, that house had this problem, that problem. You go, okay, it had some problems, and that's why it sold for this number. Other times they will be honest, and they'll be like, wow, that house was just completely remodeled. It was perfect. I'm not going to get 425 if you're, and they'll come to your number. Some of the time the seller will have information that says, okay, let's try your 425, because you know about your neighborhood too. I might be an expert on the overall market conditions in all of Rhode Island, much more than that seller, but they're going to have some comparable level of skill in assessing the market in their own neighborhood. Yeah. So one of the things that does help me to secure listings, and I sell a very high percentage of my listings. So if anybody watching said, oh, well, maybe this guy just takes a bunch of listings and doesn't sell them, I would say that's false, and you will starve trying to list my expired listings, because there are very few. But the truth of the matter with that listing is that a lot of times they'll tell me the other agent was just adamant about this, adamant about this, adamant about this, and I'll say, why? Why were they so adamant about it? Or they kept telling me I had to paint this wall, that the wall was ugly. I might look at me and be like, I agree it's ugly. Right. Do you want to paint the wall?
Right.
No. Well, I might look better if it was painted, but I will still list your house, right? So we work with kind of imperfect situations.
Sure.
And when we were talking before about conversion rates, you said you're not going to get 95%. And my point would be, when I go to my friend's house who I've known for 10 years, I'm going to get 95% too. Like, I mean, maybe 100. Yeah. Some friends, I guess.
We eventually run out of those referrals, right?
Right.
Of like sphere of influence. I mean, eventually, like you might have sold your cousin's house, your brother's house, but they then refer you to a friend, and that's not the same type of listing presentation that we're talking about.
As you grow, you can build a business that's mainly referral based. A lot of agents do. Ours is 80%, 75%. But when you're new, if you got a $1 million in sales a year sphere, enough to make about $12,000 to $15,000 as a real estate agent, then you have a $15,000 a year income source as your sphere. You got to grow that sphere bigger.
That's a great point.
You know what I mean? And
not everybody has a $10 million base of sphere of
people. So if you're a young realtor, your sphere of influence is the most important place to start. And the first time you get that transaction, that's like something that should be like fueling you, because a lot of realtors got their license, went into business, never got a transaction. So you're already a million miles ahead of the game at that point, right? But now it's like, how do you take that fuel and continue moving it forward? You're probably going to have to grow your sphere. Like when I started, I didn't have a good sphere, so I was willing to work backwards and say, I want to go on back then, and maybe it'd be one appointment a week for a listing, a valid listing appointment. So I would call and I would call and I would call and I would do everything possible, and I would sit and pick up the phone for other people's calls, and I would go to open houses and cover other people's open houses, and I would ask other people if they had anybody they didn't want to work with, and if somebody said this person's a huge jerk.
You sure this is what you want to do?
Yeah. So somebody said to me, this person's a huge jerk. Do you want to be their agent? I would be like, I like jerks. So I was going around the office like, if you got any jerks that you want people to work with, I'll take them.
I do well with them.
Yeah. So like basically, as you grow, as an agent, you can build your business to where you can work just off referrals, and then you start to work on post-client follow-up systems, which are another really good way to get referrals.
Sure.
More listings, I mean, because if you have good post-client operations, that means that you're constantly in touch with your past clients. You're not egocentric, so you don't think that they're gonna come back to you just because you're so awesome.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're like, I want to communicate.
I don't know what the stat is, but I can tell you that like, it's not a high conversion rate
Yeah.
back to like, I bought a house with Rachel and I went back to her to list it.
It's like 17 to like 84 or something like
Yeah,
that. It's like
it's-
84% said they will and like 17 do or something.
Right, yeah, it's weird. It's
Yeah.
like, and I realized that like when I was doing a lot of short sales back in the day, and I don't know if it was an embarrassment factor or they just felt like they got done wrong, but like they would like almost never wanted the same realtor.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of clients that come back to us.
Yeah.
So when I started 6 years ago, I was working a lot with, so a lot of times Matt will have a listing, and if a buyer's unrepresented, I'll go and meet the buyer or do open houses. And young buyers at that time, first time
sure,
home buyers.
sure.
And now they've had kids. And so I'm helping those same first time home buyers become sellers now.
Get into their forever
Yeah.
home or their next up home,
Yep.
yeah.
And I had a closing within the past year, and the agent said to me, "This is the first house I've ever sold twice." So he helped
Yeah.
them buy and he helped them sell.
Yeah.
And all I could think was, wow, what aren't you doing to
Yeah.
earn your clients' trust? Or what aren't you doing to follow up with them? Because for us, a huge part of our business is past clients. Whether
You gotta
it's,
stay in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
That referral business doesn't come just because you think you did a great job. Because what's the average time between somebody buys a first home to like they hold a
It's
house
like
for
5 to 7 years, right?
years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you could become out of sight, out of mind real quickly
100%.
without building a CRM, without building any type of platform to continuously market the clients that you've already sold to.
Yeah.
I also just realized that 84 plus 17 equals 101%, which was the number I gave for the past client referral. So just for the camera record, that is probably an incorrect statistic.
But if you give 110%, 101's not bad,
right.
you know?
Right.
We're Century 21, so we actually give 121%.
There you go, yes. So Matt, one of the things that I just heard you say was that I've interviewed, I'd say like not just on camera, but like hundreds of agents. I mean, thousands of agents I've talked to, not just interviewed, but had conversations with about marketing. I've done seminars. The sphere of equating like their book of business, like if you only had $1 million sphere, like you could only do $15,000 worth of business.
Yeah.
You know, and I've never heard anybody say that before. Is that like something that Matt Patty made up? Are those numbers so am I not gonna be able to put that on camera? Or is that like your way of just looking at how people
If you
attack what they should be doing?
say your book of business worth $1 million, you get an average, that's probably going to make you about $25,000 to $30,000 in gross commissions.
Yep.
You're going to have some expenses of a few $1,000s off of that. You're going to have some kind of a split to your broker between
Sure.
50 and 80%,
Gotcha.
depending on what they provide. You're
Yeah.
probably going to make about 15 grand. So when people are like, just
gotcha.
work your sphere, work your sphere, work your sphere. Some
Yeah.
people come in and they're blessed. They have these incredible spheres. And some people come in and they really have to build a sphere.
Yeah.
What I've seen from some of the highest performers, so that's just kind of like my inverted, like street guy meets book reader kind of way of rephrasing it, I
Sure.
guess.
When I
But-
talked about him scribbling in
Yeah,
our meeting,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what he was doing.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, so to sell this many houses.
Yeah.
So
to
we
make
call that
the-
Matt Patty math.
Yeah,
Yes.
the amount of houses you need to sell to get
101%.
what you want.
So basically, the idea is grow your sphere
Right.
each year. And, when it comes to prospecting, some of my friends I met when we were prospecting them on a real estate transaction, you
Yeah.
know, so like when you deal with the general public, sometimes you get to a certain point where you have a lot going on and you almost want to take a step back from the general public. I don't know if you
Sure.
ever feel like that,
Yeah.
but
I'm in a different, yes and no.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to get to the public
Yeah.
more now with doing video.
Got you.
and doing stuff. Yeah,
But when you
but I understand what you're saying.
But conceptually, the idea is when you access the general public, you can meet a lot of crazy people, but you can also meet a lot of good people too.
Right.
Like you can meet people in all different spheres, sectors. Like some of my friends that I know now that I would call a friend, I met because they were real estate clients, and not every client becomes your best buddy and you hang
Yeah.
out. Actually, you know me, I don't really hang out ever,
Yeah.
but I still would pick up the phone and call people, text them, see them
Right.
around, support them. If they opened a business,
Yeah.
I would go patronize their
Right.
business.
Yeah.
If they had a friend who needed a hand, I would help their friend. Just
Sure.
like, you know, anything they asked for, I would want to hope they would call me for.
Yeah.
So
That's a whole different book of business building. You know,
right.
Because I think in some models, like when you first get into real estate, you know, the first thing they always talk, I know financial planners, I know realtors, like sphere of business, sphere of business, sphere of business. And like some people have no sphere. So
I think everybody has a sphere, they just don't realize it.
right. So if you played sports, or if you Girl Scouts, or you have PTO, or if you have like children, I mean, there's always a sphere, right?
Parents, cousins, acquaintances.
And by the way, if someone really
And maybe people are afraid to kind of approach
I think
that.
they are.
look at it this way. This might be shocking too. If you really think about a person who says they have no sphere, they have something, right, that made them willing to pick up and move. Let's say they moved from New Orleans to Rhode Island, not knowing anybody.
Right.
What makes a person capable of even doing that?
Right.
Is somebody who would be capable of going out in the community, meeting to people, talking to people, being like, "What's with that accent? I'm a realtor. You know, I move here. And what's your story? Why did you do that?" You have an instant appeal, right?
I want to thank you both for sitting down with me. And you know, one of my last questions that I always like to ask is why Dan Balkun and why Balkun Title? You know, you have many options out there, right? And obviously, we didn't start working from day one together, but here we are, all of these years later, and you know, I appreciate that. But like, you know, give me a little, give me some headstrong information of like why Balkun Title?
Besides the basics like service, communication, support, marketing, it's really the way that you guys approach the customer service, the way that you approach the actual client. It's really, my friend, it's you. You're a big part of why we continue to refer your company, because you think about business the way that we think about business. And you think about clients the way that we think about clients, and the way that your staff universally from top to bottom talks to people, the way that they approach problem solving, the way that you approach getting into situations that are right in that gray area of, man, do we have to do this crap or not, right? All of those things that you do for us to help make our clients happy on closing day, even when they could have had a shit show.
Yeah.
God, man, I thank you for it.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you. I
do.
appreciate
I
that.
really
Yeah.
do.
And one of the reasons that I love working with you and your
Not because
office.
Matt says you have to.
No,
No, I'm just kidding.
No, so one of the great things about
My kids are
Century 21
$5. She's real cheap. She likes Starbucks. She gets a Starbucks gift card.
and that's all I have to do. Yep. No, so one of the great things actually about Shoreline Properties is that we have autonomy. So we're able to work with whomever we choose to, whether it be clients, vendors. And so when we have a client, we make a choice to send them to you, to your company for closing. And part of that is that you guys are willing to take a hands-on approach, whether it's you at the top, your paralegals, whoever it is,
Or the whole company.
everybody's willing to help. Like Matt said, the customer service is so important.
Yeah.
And when we have a client with a problem, because let's be honest, not all transactions go smoothly, we need somebody who's going to help that client, who's going to stand up for that client, who's going to dig in and do some extra work.
Sure.
So for us, we know that when we send people to Balkun Title, it's going to go smoothly. Even if there's bumps in the road,
Yeah, because
you
it's
guys,
never 100%
you guys are
perfect,
going to
but-
be on top of it
I
and
appreciate
get
that.
us to closing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much,
Thank
Rachel.
you.
Matt, another successful day behind the camera, but really appreciate your partnerships, our friendships that we've grown, and I really appreciate everything that we're doing together, and hopefully, 2023 continues to grow, and then years to come.
You're the GOAT, my friend.
You're the GOAT. What a day of filming with Matt Patty and his team over at Century 21 Shoreline Properties in Warwick. One of the commonalities that I always hear from Matt's clients is like how attentive Matt is in business. I think realtors walk on pins and needles because they're unsure of himself, and Matt is one person that is very sure of himself when it comes to his business model. What I firmly believe is that he might be the next superstar to continue growing his business and helping his agents grow into rock star agents.